Khalifa. Khalifa is a great theatre experience. But is that enough?
പൊട്ടിക്കാൻ പോവാ.
Today I watched Khalifa, and honestly, there are quite a few things that I really enjoyed about the film. The first thing for me is Prithviraj himself. The look, the styling, the way he carries himself, the swagger, everything works. And I also felt that his acting has improved considerably. I really enjoyed the action in this film. What I liked is that the makers have not made every fight look the same. They have brought in different kinds of fighters, different physicalities, different cultures, different ethnicity, and different styles of fighting. Even the vehicles used in these fight sequences are quite different. So when one fight finishes, the next one doesn't feel like it's a repetition. I think it is very important in an action film. In fact, the production value is also visible throughout the film. The frames are quite beautiful. The locations, the vehicles, the expensive shots, the staging of the action, everything gives the film a certain kind of richness. And the music adds to this experience. There are several moments where I felt that this is exactly the kind of film that is meant to be watched in a theatre. And then you hear the audience react. That's also a cinema experience. And Khalifa understands that grammar very well.
ഇത് ചുമ്മാ ഭീഷണിയൊന്നുമല്ല സാറേ.
But there is another side of the film that I kept thinking about. This is where for me the film becomes interesting to discuss. See, the mass cinema was not always only about mass moments. Even our mass films perhaps a decade or 2 decades ago had emotions that stayed with us. Today I sometimes wonder whether we as audience have become so used to these emotional moments that we have stopped feeling them. In Khalifa, there is a moment where Prithviraj looks at his son in an emotional situation. The scene is clearly meant to affect us, but I was thinking, why I am not feeling this as much as I should have? Or have we become so familiar with the language of mass cinema that we can recognize the emotional scene even before we emotionally experience it? Well, the area where I felt Khalifa was slightly weaker is the villain and the core conflict. Shammi Tilagan is a wonderful actor, no doubt, but we are so familiar with his makeover, his actions, his dialogue delivery, even though he has tried not to repeat. The villain didn't grip me as much as I expected. And whatever Prithviraj's character Ali ultimately achieves, considering the build-up that the film gives, didn't feel like a huge achievement for me, because the film follows certain familiar templates. And even though the basic story is inspired by a true story, the way it has been fitted into a familiar mass movie structure makes several developments quite predictable. Having said that, I really liked some of the supporting characters. Ashwin Matthew, for example, is very charming, out there, slightly naughty, English-speaking bad boy in most of the films. He plays one of the customs officers' role. Joy Verghese, he brings another kind of charm to another customs officer.
A notorious star smuggler.
And Anand Manmathan, Vaishnavi, I think her name is Vaishnavi only, and Sanju Shivram, all of them establish their presence quite well in a big budget film like this. I think this is also something interesting happening in a Malayalam film. Like Prithviraj's pan-Indian presence makes it easier for actors like Suresh Oberoi and Neil Nathan Mukesh to become part of Malayalam cinema. That tells us how far Malayalam film has travelled. But when Mohanlal appears, you know what happens in the theatre. There is a certain swagger that only he can create. And you can almost hear the younger audience celebrating. That's also cinema. Sometimes you don't need a complicated explanation for why an audience is cheering. We are simply happy to see someone we love. At the same time, I did feel that some of the other cameo appearances didn't quite justify the characters they were given. The older generation led by Indrans is also a familiar template, but I thought it was used quite effectively to move the story forward. And Indrans' makeover is quite interesting. So, would I recommend Khalifa? Yes. Especially if you enjoy action films, and more importantly, if you enjoy watching a mass movie in a theatre. Because Khalifa gives you that experience: beautiful frames, music, action, scale, swagger, surprises. But I came out of the theatre with one thought. Have we started believing that style, scale, and swagger can replace emotion and content? Because I don't think they can. Until some years ago, a mass film could give you the hero, the fights, the music, the whistles, and still make you feel something. Today, the audience has seen everything. We have seen the makeover, the slow motion entry, expensive cars, big fights. We have seen the cameo also. So what will make us come to the theatre tomorrow? Maybe it is not going to be more spectacle, maybe it is going to be a better story. Because after the Thursday night excitement is over, on Friday there is always a small film waiting somewhere with no superstar, no expensive cars, no spectacular fights, but a story that makes us feel. And that, I think, is where Khalifa leaves me. Khalifa gave me almost everything I expect from a big screen mass movie. And yet, when I walked out of the theatre, I had one question. Is that enough anymore? Thank you.
Media Mathamgi